This is
Man versus Mood.
Part 2 of the 2022 discussion that we just shut down. Well, you guys don't know this because this is a week later, but we spent an hour and a half going over our goals, what we're looking for 2022 to accomplish, and then we kind of went down the health trail that all of us are. Well, a trail is a good way to put it because it is a journey. It's something that has ups and downs and sticks and bumps and bruises and all of that along the way. But like usual, we've got to bring up a blessing again because we walked through a lot of stuff right there, and I think that the smile on Mike's face is more genuine than the one
you
that
seem lighter.
Yeah,
I do feel lighter
than when we started the last show. But I just want to force you guys to think of something else to be blessed about other than what an hour and a half ago we were.
That'll be easy for me.
Well, you're eating. That's a
Not
blessing.
there, but yeah.
I'm going to start this one because the last one a week ago, for all of you listening, was the fun time that I spent in Fossil. What I'm very blessed with right now is that I love to sit around here, but the blessing is that we all three of us, or the three of you that I get to see, I get to see you open up about things. And there's some self-realization that occurs on all of your faces. You don't see it, but I do. And you probably see it on each other. But I see it, and I'm sure you do as well, Jen. But there are little light bulbs that go off. And little things that maybe you hadn't thought of, or maybe you, or reminders of things that are positive, sometimes negative, but we're acknowledging them. And that is something that for me, I know has been so unbelievably helpful to me, is just acknowledging whatever it is, rather than just pushing through it or whatever it might be. Because for me, I didn't acknowledge most of anything. I just kept going, and I didn't know I was allowed to have emotions or think about things or have wants and desires and things like that.
I feel like that's a huge part of talking about men and their mental health, is that I think part of the reason why I've been able to go on this journey is because it's been socially acceptable for me to go on this journey. Yeah. And for men, correct me if I'm wrong, from the outside, it looks like it's not, and it never has been. And only now is it's kind of cutting edge to, like, for men to be like, you're progressive if you're like talking about your mental health.
I wouldn't say cutting edge.
I don't think it's like cutting edge
like
either.
Like a dull knife.
Well, I think that it's still not socially acceptable. I mean, and Gary has given us the best insight into that because you have probably had the most negative feedback of the four of us.
Definitely.
Because you've had people that have told you that this is a fucking joke.
Mm-hmm.
Or that, yeah.
Ooh, I want to meet them. Who are these people?
Well,
let me at them.
It's more along the lines of men dealing with their mental health. Yeah. And I know that for me, I have people still, thank you so much. This is helpful, all of those things. And there are still the vast majority of people that it doesn't exist or it's dumb or whatever it might be. I don't begrudge them their thoughts because it's not my job to tell them how to think.
It also really is telling on their journey of where they're at. Mm-hmm. When somebody's got a negative thing to say about somebody else, which also helps me for my gauge of how I'm doing, is like if I start to have like ooh, gross feelings about what somebody else is doing or has done, it now triggers this, oh, why do I think that? Because I know it's my job to figure that out. Yeah. It's not their job to change. It's not their job to not do what they're doing. And I still do this. There's this one girl in my industry, in my makeup artist industry, that I do not understand. She's like a direct competitor in the world of makeup artistry, and she's stunning. She was on Big Brother recently. But there's something about her that makes me cringe. It makes me go, ugh. And I, in past life, would have been like, oh, okay, like, she's the problem. She's gross. She's got this and that. But now through work that I've done, I've realized like, oh, okay, wait. It's my job to figure that out.
Yeah.
Not her job. She can live her beautiful life and do whatever makes her happy, which is what she's doing for the first time ever. She's been through 2 major divorces in her life. Like, she's been through some serious stuff. And instead now I can take this look of like, you know, do you?
Yeah.
I'm happy for you that you're going on this journey. I'm glad that you're not just sitting around depressed and suicidal.
Well, and also too, like, you can even see it too. I mean,
yeah.
I told Mike, like, when I first got here, like, I walked by the window and I was standing by the window and I opened up my jacket a little bit and I was massaging my chest. and
what part of your chest, Gary?
Yeah.
What part of that?
And Mike didn't
the
even
areola
look.
region?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, like he didn't look, you know, like he didn't budge or anything. And I just think that, like, just even based off today, you know, like off the premise of today, you know, at first, you know, we talked about it, you know, just not really being himself and being kind of shy. Like, Mike had the chance to just be, you know,
Fake.
typical, like a guy, I guess.
Yeah.
And thug it out and tough it out and not talk about it. But it was like he took the opportunity to like really open up and talk to us and talk to the listeners.
Which was your work to do, and you did it.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, dang, man, I'm so proud of you.
Right.
Like, you allowed yourself to do that.
Yeah, and just for me, like, one of my favorite sayings is, the beauty's in the butterfly, but the growth is in the cocoon.
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
And like,
Man,
that's a
we
good
gotta
one.
we gotta send that into what's
that's
that
a card.
store, you know?
No, that's an Instagram post.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Words
just like
of Gary.
Yeah, no. Jim Quick, thank you. And I don't know, like, I just think there's something to be said about that. You know, like, we just live like in a day and age of, like, you know, short video clips and, you know,
Quick, fast.
Yeah, like highlight reels, you know, like that.
But everything is, though, right?
Yeah.
Sex lives, relationships, everything is just quick.
Yeah.
Get in,
Yeah.
get what I want, and get out and burn the motherfuckers behind me.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're hitting the nail right
That might
on the
be
head.
the man perspective. Women don't do that, just so you know.
I think that
They
now,
might.
I think now it has, at least the physical and the quick relationship, the friends with benefits, that type of thing, has proliferated greatly with the advent of Tinder, TikTok, all of these types of tools, right?
For real. And from the women's perspective, I am desperately fighting not to feel like I have to act like a man to achieve, succeed, fit in society. Like, that's kind of stuff, like you're talking about, like how the culture has kind of shifted. And for the most part, women weren't part of that turn and burn culture and dating and things like that. But yet through like the 90s and like Sex and the City and the popularization of like, well, if men can do it, then I can do it. Yeah. Mentality, it's like, well, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like,
or that it brings you joy.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's the thing that that's the elephant in the room that we don't talk about as much, as because, you know, you have the locker room mentality of guys hit it and quit it, and oh, I got her and her and her, and how cool all of that kind of stuff is. But in the end, is that guy happy? No, he's probably not. I mean, yeah, he might have been in the moment. He's distracted, but whether that brought him any true happiness, likely it did not.
No, like, and it definitely brings like short-term happiness and stuff like that. And it's just interesting, like, coming from like a college basketball background and sports and all this stuff, like, that was definitely how like a certain amount of people talked, was like, oh, like, I got this and this and this and did that, and she this and this and this, and I'm just like, that is fucked.
Dude, that made my skin crawl as a woman.
Did you I think that a big reason that it continues is that we don't hold that accountable, or say, you know, did that really make you happy? And bring it to their attention, because we'll be bashed for it. If we went back 25 years and we were in the high school locker room and the quarterback started, you know, saying how, you know, great he was with the girls, would we be able to now, in a more progressive time, have that discussion where we say, dude, is it really that cool that you are talking down to the women as if they're objects, you're objectifying them? Now, if everyone was happy and you didn't go and brag about it, then I guess that's one thing. If everyone is in on it and everyone, the man and the woman, or the man and the woman, whatever it might be, and they didn't use it to raise their social profile, which is what a lot of guys do, and let's be honest, they lie about it.
Yeah.
Are we at a place, do you think, that we could have that type of discussion, or do you think that we would be clowned for doing that, saying, bro, that's really not that cool. You're dogging.
You would
this.
definitely get clowned. 100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
I think it depends on who you hang out with. Who do you allow in your life?
No, I'm talking about in the locker room. We don't get a choice. We're on a team.
True.
Okay, we're on a football team.
True.
That type of discussion, I think we are still a long ways away from.
Okay.
But I think like it depends like on the sport too, because with basketball, for the most part, it's the same type of people. But in something like football's a little different, I feel like, because especially like in college, because it brings together different types of people from different area. Like for the most part, linemen are usually, like
big fat guys like me.
Well, yeah. And the running backs or the, wide receivers or whatever come from like a different, like it comes from a different area code, a different place. And I just think, for me, thinking about like any school that I went to, like whether it was a local school that I went to or a Bible school that I went to, where, things are supposed to be, non-secular and things are supposed to be better. Like in that like time frame, people would have been dogged and clowned and made fun of, and it was just interesting. I don't know.
Yeah,
I hope that we're moving. I hope we're moving away from that.
I remember locker room days.
Yeah.
How many people you were with this weekend?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just like,
it's none of your business. Just like my money, you don't need to know shit about anything about me.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, on the women's side of that thing, they're constantly having the conversation with each other of how to protect themselves from that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Because we don't want our names uttered in that room unless we're kind of broken, and we know it as women. Yeah. That's why that whole mentality of like you're just a hoe, you're a slut. Nobody wants to be a part of that culture because they know what it means. We all emotionally understand that somebody that allows that to happen is probably not happy with themselves, or there's something else going on that they allow that to happen. And so the idea of like the cultural like programming that I feel when you guys talk about this stuff just makes me
programming is definitely what it is, because it is still championed for a man to have a lot of notches on his bedboard.
It's now bleeding into the women's culture. In the feminine culture, it's turning into, I mean, even in like the lesbian culture, where it's woman on woman, it's bleeding into, it's an achievement to like sleep with all these people and like lead this kind of lifestyle. But does it lead to happiness? It's arguable.
It leads to STDs. It leads to
loneliness,
suicide.
Having a son that is 22 and has been in the dating world through Tinder and all that kind of stuff.
Oh gosh, no way.
I mean, nope. and we have very open discussions about it. And he's like, you're not going to meet a girl with a body count under 30 if she's over 20 or if she's over 18 years old.
What?
He goes, if they're under 20, I don't even think, I think they're lying if they say it's under 20. Yeah. That's the mentality that is being, and again, they can be lying about it. But he said, I mean, and he has no reason to lie to me. I mean, we're just talking about the whole the dating world as a 20 or 21 or 22-year-old male who isn't. Yeah. I mean, he's got his shit together. He's got a good job and all that. So he has gals that are, I mean, interested in him. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I was just blown away when he told us that.
For me, like I'm terrified of this shit. Like, my son is 16. He's 6'9". He has green eyes. Like, it's just like I'm
olive skin.
Yeah, exactly. And like I'm just scared. Like he plays basketball and played football and stuff like that. And like I'm terrified of like him just like having these conversations with, like, I try to talk to him as much as I can about, the same things you're talking to your son about. But sometimes like the kids just don't want to listen, cause
of course they got to do it themselves.
They got to go through the journey. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But it's, it's society reinforcing it. And again, it all goes back, and this is just my opinion, but to the instant gratification of life now.
Yeah.
We're not programmed to look for long term. I mean, even marriages. The starter marriage is a very real thing. I read about an article in like New York Times the other day where that's the first 2 or 3 years, you know, I'm going to have my first marriage. It'll be 2 to 3 years. So I just kind of get that figured out. And then I'll move along to the man or woman that I really want to marry. And I'm like,
It doesn't
first
have
of all,
to be like that, though.
it's like, if you don't want to get married until you're 30, do your thing. Because if you have the mental capacity to think about what you want in life and what it's going to take to get you there, or hopefully you have somebody that can mentor you, is a leader for you when you're 18, 20, 22 years old, that says you don't need to go get married right away. If that's not what, if you want to be a doctor, you probably don't want to get married when you're 24. If you want to have 6 kids or 8 kids or 10 kids, then you probably do want to get married when you're 22 or 24, just by the nature of biology.
Yeah.
You don't want a woman having kids at 40 years old. It's just not. I mean, she can do it, but it's not nearly
really
as safe.
hard.
There's a lot of dangers involved.
Yeah.
But also now it's like we like the dating world and like the dating realm now is just different because it's so easy to find somebody new.
Yeah.
So it's like,
So it's toxic, like fast.
yeah.
Like
So
the turn and burn of like, I saw a TikTok video of someone explaining the mental gymnastics you have to go through when you find somebody, you match with somebody, and you're like, oh, they're cool.
yeah,
The mental gymnastics to just stop scrolling,
yeah.
stop swiping, just okay. I'm just gonna. Nobody does that. Like, who's gonna do that?
It's a slot machine, though.
That's-
You're
yes,
getting paid
that's-
off
yes.
every time.
Yeah. But like, rather than like, I don't know, like say you meet somebody on Hinge or whatever, you talk to them, you know, for a couple months and they say, you know,
Or Grindr.
I'm about this. No, that's Will. But,
Why you guys got to do that? Just because I put my hand in one time.
but yeah, just, so I don't know, it's just tough because it's like now when anything happens, you know, if there's some sort of miscommunication or anything, like the reality isn't to go through and fix it.
No.
The reality is to
Turn and burn.
Get back on the dating apps and go and find, you know, somebody else that'll make you happy, you know, for a month or a couple weeks or something, like rather than like working on it with your partner and then, you know, figuring out like your own traumas and rather than doing that and looking yourself in the mirror, you're just going to go out and spread that trauma like onto somebody else. It's so
I was
Okay.
just talking about that this morning with my
Yeah.
husband.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to throw myself under the bus. So, I have done the exact same thing.
Grinder or
No.
okay.
Funny.
Well done.
No, where, you know, things get hard and my addiction would come into play and I would go find somebody else.
Yeah.
And until it would catch up to me, and my ex now would get a text message or a phone call. Hey, this guy's, you know, he says he's not married, but you know, he's hitting on me.
Yeah.
And I can own that. And trust me, it's not comfortable telling the world this, but until people can own it and get out of their own way and say, look, I was a fuck up. I was a mistake of what I did. I made a lot of mistakes. I've ruined 3 marriages, you know, and I'm tired of making those mistakes. I don't want to lose Michelle. So where does this stop? And by seeking out the help that I needed, doing this, having our conversations with
What
Will,
did help look like for you?
counseling for one, and actually going through a program that was helping me to get past those urges and things like that.
Knee-jerk reactions that you felt
right.
like you couldn't help?
And a lot of it in the counseling really helped with one of my counselors was I really dove into why I was doing what I was doing. Where was that coming from? This is just a symptom of a deeper issue. And that deeper issue for me was I had childhood traumas with step parents, with my dad, with my mom, with kids that I was friends with being molested at 8 years old, and again by a babysitter at 11 years old. Like, that's where a lot of this stemmed from. And that's just all kind of the slime along with it. And yeah, I made the choices and I made those poor decisions. But at some point in your life, you have to go, do you want this to kill you? Because I was at that point where I was like, if I cheat on my spouse again, or if I destroy my kids' image of myself, which I've already had done, and I've been very open and honest with them about my entire process of what I've been going through, I got to the point where I was like, I would rather die than keep hurting people.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at everybody else that I was hurting everybody else. I didn't really see that I was hurting myself until I sat down with the counselor, and he's like, you know, when you were 16 years old and you worked at Albertsons, and this lady that you helped out to her car, she's like, oh, do you want to help me? She lived at the apartments across the street, and she's like, well, and she goes, you know, you can help me come put my groceries away. I'm 16.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a notch in my cap, but my counselor was like, you know, that's abuse, right? That's sexual abuse. And she's like in her 30s. I was just like, at that age, when you're a teenage boy, you don't look at it that way.
Because of what we just talked about with society.
You think about telling all your friends.
Yep.
Yeah, locker room talk for sure.
But, you know, I've talked to my counselor about even kind of talking about this stuff. He's like, I wouldn't put it out there. But I feel I do a disservice of not telling my full story if I don't. Because there's so many guys and so many women that are out there that are doing this to their spouses, to their kids, to their relatives, to their friends, and lying about it the entire time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's one of I was reading an article last week or the week before that the number of marriages that have infidelity in them. Mm-hmm. And it used to be wildly skewed towards the men. And now it's damn near 50-50.
Yeah.
And
well, trauma is trauma.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter what gender you are. Doesn't matter, you know, it's like, and women are not exempt from it just because we tend to be more emotional and tend to be more emotionally intelligent sooner does not mean we're exempt from trauma. And
you know, we're humans still. We are biological animals. And if you don't set yourself up for success to not go down that path, which Mike readily admits he was not ready for, you know, years and years ago, and it's just been recently that you have acknowledged that. I went down the same path, but mine was with food. Okay, huge issues, but that led to me being the exact opposite, where I never thought anyone would ever want to be ever near me or anything. So I just never, I mean, I'm certain that a lot of people probably thought I was gay when I was younger because and I had more girlfriends than any other guy I knew. And
because bigger guys are safe.
Likely.
That's the stigma.
Yeah.
And then I got in shape, and this is before Kim and I were together, and things changed, but I didn't change. They did, and it was just my mentality of never thinking I was worthy of anything stayed with me forever. And so that manifested itself with double cheeseburgers and chicken nuggets and French fries and pizza, and it was always, I was safe doing that because I was the opposite of you. I was only hurting myself. I was always so worried about everyone else. Mm-hmm. I never wanted to hurt anyone else's feelings because I was constantly seeking their approval.
You know, the hardest thing that I ever heard was, I can't remember who asked me, but they go, do you hate women? And I was like, no, that's like the furthest thing from the truth. Then why do you do what you do? And I was just like, wow.
Okay.
So when you talk about point of disgust, the last episode, that was pretty much what opened my eyes and like, holy shit. That's the vibe
That's not
I
who
put
I want
off.
to be.
No,
I don't want to be that.
I don't want to be known as that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I look at all the shit I've done and I'm like, I was one of those guys in the locker room that was like, bedpost, 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 you know? And now I have teenage daughters.
Right.
And I'm like,
Makes you want to fight somebody.
oh, yeah. You know, and but growing up in that society, and then porn was highly, well, the internet just came out. Magazines were everywhere. They still had them in grocery stores with the black cover thing covering them, except for the name. And, you know, that's the society us as, you know, early 40s and late 30s grew up in.
Oh, yeah.
And so when those things became an addiction and food became an addiction, because that was my other thing, those were my escapes. That's where I went to escape. And
Great distractions.
yeah,
Didn't make you like have to think about your feelings at all.
No. It's the easiest thing to run away from.
On the flip side, well, first of all, I respect you so much for this conversation you're having.
Yes.
Like, outrageously respect you.
I can already know the blowback I'm going to get from it, but
And to be honest, that's their journey, not yours. Like, I respect the shit out of you for bringing this up because it is so prevalent. All of these things have touched every single man in my life in one way, shape, or form, in some way. And an infidelity to porn addictions to feeling unworthy and that I don't want to be that person, and then letting that stop their progression in life. And like, I mean, it's just trauma with previous parents and steps and this and that. I mean, it's always bothered me that it's unacceptable to have this kind of roundtable conversation around your shortcomings, around things that you've been trying to overcome and where you've been. And because as humans, that's some of the best ways to learn. If you don't want to learn from experience, you learn from somebody else. How are you going to learn from somebody else if nobody talks about it?
Exactly.
You know, and I think it's incredibly heroic and brave to be like, here's my dirty laundry world, but this is why we do this, which is why you're excited to do this. So like, first of all, respect the shit out of you. High five.
I accept that.
Good. I'm glad you do. But we were talking about turn and burn relationships, like, you know, the way things were celebrated for you guys growing up. And on the flip side, I've got permission to talk about this, so I'm going to talk about it because it does affect, it's mine and my marriage. My husband's dad and mom went through 10, 12 years of infidelity.
Oh, wow.
Like a long time. Like,
On
discovering each other at hotels and like.
Both of them, though?
Yes.
Oh.
Just one did it on vacation and one would do it in dumb ways. That's a long story.
Let me guess which one did the dumb stuff.
Yeah, you can guess.
Hashtag man.
Dumbest smart person I know. This is the guy with 2 PhDs and 5 master's degrees and
He's
6
still
bachelor's
a
degrees.
man.
He's still a man. Dumbest smart person I know. But my husband watched his parents do this.
Was he aware of it, do you think?
He became aware of it pretty quickly at like age 8.
Really?
7, 8, 9, because that's when things got really bad. He was pretty oblivious up to that point, but of course, you look back and you go, oh, and he's like had these moments all the time, and he was the youngest of 5, so he's got older siblings that was their entire childhood, all the way to 17 years old.
So this was occurring over that much time.
Over and over and over again.
And they, with the same, like, each of them had one partner, or they had multiple partners?
One had one partner that just, they fell in love with each other and wouldn't acknowledge it. They ended up getting married later.
So these people did
divorced. Yeah. They went through 3 years of family therapy and then personal therapy and then marriage therapy. They tried. They really did the dang thing. But they'd been married 25 years at that point and had done a lot of damage to each other. You know, so it's kind of understandable that there were some things they couldn't get past.
Yep.
But Sky was 10 when they separated. And when it's interesting being married to someone who was like, I will never be like that. Because his parents were pretty open when they got to a certain point, because they got to family therapy and there wasn't much to hide from there. Yeah. You know, and I think that on the flip side, being married to someone who has seen the example, they know enough information to be like, absolutely not. It destroyed his relationship with his parents. you know, because didn't have the maturity to like really understand what was happening. And it took him a long time to forgive them for their shortcomings. And there's still, that is a whole nother situation. But what I'm trying to get at is I've been married 16 years to him. And we fell in love hard. We only dated 3 months before we were engaged.
Are you shitting me?
I'm not shitting you. We fell in love hard and fast. And I was like, like the whole thing was scary to me. But I couldn't imagine my life without him. It was kind of, you know, when you know. And we waited to have kids and things like that. So we spent the first like 4 or 5 years together with no kids, young, married.
That's huge.
It's huge and hard. Because at that point, everyone's dating. All of your friends are still single. You're watching them make mistakes. You're watching them turn and burn, and you're, what are you doing? And back then, things were really private when you made mistakes.
Wasn't on the internet.
That wasn't on the internet. There was no dating apps. There was no, like, you had to seek out the infidelity, and it was still super prevalent.
AOL chat rooms.
AOL chat rooms. Yeah, like porn chat rooms. I mean, it was easy to connect, but it wasn't public. Not even kind of. People weren't saving receipts, screenshots of shit, and then sending it to their other people. Like, it was much harder to get caught.
Oh, yeah.
So it was very private.
Now in the age of social media, it's very easy to get caught.
Exactly. Very easy. In fact, kind of a duh. Anyway, but it was interesting being married to somebody during that time who was just like, I will never this. I will never that. I want this for us. I want this. Like, he was so clear because of the therapy that his family had gone through at a formidable age, 10, 11, 12, 13. His teenagers were really rough. Really, really rough. And he completely lost respect for his parents. And there was a ton of trauma he had to deal with during that time. But I really think that the only reason why our marriage has been able to be what it is now is because of what he learned from his parents' mistakes. So being open to talk about your mistakes is generational healing. It can be generational healing.
Yeah, and I want it to stop with me. I don't want it to go to Hunter, and I don't want it to go to Bree or Maddie.
And that's how his parents felt. They were like, they hit a point of disgust, and they tried. They really did. And I respect what their efforts were. You know, I respect what their efforts were. And it's interesting looking back on our marriage and seeing our growth, because we had to grow together from 21 till age 37, 38. Like, there is.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole lifetime, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm a completely
we can all
different
agree on that.
Like that's what I want for my son too. Like, and that's what I was saying. Like, I'm terrified. So my dad's from Lagos, Nigeria. And he said that he has 25 brothers and sisters.
Are you? Well, wow. Okay. I totally understand.
Yeah.
I know how that is.
Yeah. So it's just a different world. Like, it's entirely different. Right. So, you know, there was things that my dad was doing, you know, when he first came here, you know, as far as notches on belts and stuff like that. And like, I was definitely doing that too. And it's interesting just sitting here and listening to Mike, because a lot of that shit that he was talking about, like, I was doing that too. But also, like, the people that were around me were like encouraging these things. And it's like, now my friends like look at me now and they're like, man, you're so lucky to be single, and like, you can go out and do whatever you want. You don't have to check in and this and that. I'm like, it's
not all it's cracked up to be.
I mean, it's definitely nice to, like, you know, build with somebody and grow and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting hearing my dad's story, his dad's story. My dad, like, even told me too that he never remembers his dad even hugging him ever.
Yeah.
And, you know, that can kind of matriculate down like into other things where you're finding yourself kind of displacing to get comfort, you know, whether it's food or whether it's sex or dating apps or drugs or drinking or whatever else. And, you know, it's just a nasty problem. And I'm just hoping that I can, you know, help assist my son, you know, with things that I've done wrong and mistakes that I've made, so he can learn from that.
Well,
being open, yeah.
Being open is it's the first step, because I think that what happens, and I know that this is from experience, families, especially ones that were conservative, were the June and Wally Cleaver. Mm-hmm. Everything's perfect on the outside, and it's an absolute fucking dumpster fire back behind it. But what happens is that, and a lot of times it starts with the grandparents, they constantly want this veneer of perfection.
Yeah.
So everything is plastered over, all the bad shit. So everyone becomes incredibly good at being fake. I know I did, because we don't talk about the fact that literally every man in my family was an alcoholic, raging. To this day, they still are. The ones that haven't passed away yet. Okay. But, and not on my dad's side, because I don't really know that side very well. Even to my brother, I don't know what he does. I haven't talked to him in years, but I know that it was always more important to make sure everyone thought we were the God-fearing, church-going, perfect family. Not that we had this rampant addiction.
I think this is like part of the cultural breakdown that's happening, where we are the cultural product of that. And we're like, no more. We've hit that point of disgust. I don't even know how many times. I mean, Sky's dad was a closet alcoholic for 25 years because he was trying to cope with all the infidelity and all the things that were going on. And it took people intervening in his life, and he went to rehab at one point. It was like, it's, and he's just now accepting that he's not perfect. He's just now willing to be like, man, I made some mistakes. And that guy's 70 something.
Really?
Yeah. And it's like, okay.
And that goes to show you that it's never too late.
Never too late.
It doesn't matter if you're 50, 60, 70, 80, or 5 days before Betty White. Once you get to that acceptance point, the floodgates will be opened, and you'll be able to appreciate what you've gone through, and that it's a journey, but it's behind you. You can't change that. All you can do, and I think this, to your point, Jen, is that we have become fed up with covering for everyone else's bullshit, including our own, and saying, I'm tired of hiding this. I'm tired of faking like everything is great on Instagram.
Tired of shame and guilt. Shame and guilt will eat at your soul.
I don't have one left because that's all I've lived on.
And
it's been my fuel.
And you've had to rebuild.
I'm starting.
You are.
But it's a process that is, since it's in its infancy, because I've just acknowledged it in the last year, that shame is why I've, what has driven me to try to be better, and why I constantly look for acceptance from people, and that I never got because of all of their fucking issues. But I always knew that the issues were there for them, but it still didn't stop me from constantly looking for them to appreciate me, and I doing dumb shit and just being a people pleaser.
Well, you know, a lot of what porn addiction or infidelity and all that has to do with is, well, for myself, and I kind of see it, you, Gary, when I was listening to yours, was we just want to be accepted, and when we're not accepted by our parents, or we're accepted to an extent where, we just want to be known and be, what's the right word for it?
Acknowledged.
Yeah, acknowledged.
Is respect part of that?
No, I don't think so at that point.
Because respect is so much higher than acknowledgement in my book.
With pornography and things like that, it's very easy to, look at the girls on there because they're already giving themselves to you through the screen, that you already feel like you're accepted, and then once that becomes not enough, then you go out onto the Tinders and the Bumbles and the, Plenty of Fish or whatever is out there. And you're like, okay, now how can I take that a step further? Now you're trying to seek that out with somebody else in person. And, how, like for myself, was when I was feeling super low, or I felt like I was really fat and I didn't feel like I deserved anything, I would go see if I could still get that acceptance from somebody else, the wrong way, of course, but that's what I was seeking. And then when I got that, then I got tired of it, or, then I just kind of got tired with that, and then I would go back to food. And so when one was out of control, the other one wasn't, and it would go back and forth. Some people, they'll have they'll kind of like what you said with your father-in-law, the infidelity, and then he would cover it with alcohol because he was trying to cope with it that way.
Because it was shameful. Right. Especially because that was in a Utah Mormon culture. It was like when his parents got a divorce, the entire family had a scarlet letter. It's
extremely shameful. Yeah. And, and then you have everybody's judgment when they find out about it. all that's cast on you and that extra weight, and you're just like, what's the point?
It's funny because, like, for me, like, when I got divorced, one of my friends told me when he was at my wedding and I was walking down the aisle and stuff like that, he goes, I know this guy's going to get divorced. And he told me that. And I'm just like,
That's cold-blooded.
yeah, right. And
Wrong place, man.
yeah.
There's a time and a place for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The aisle isn't the place. Like,
Yeah.
holler at me a week ago, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or in like earnest and
Yeah.
a quiet, integral space of like
Yeah.
comfort, not your
Yeah.
wedding. My
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. It was just interesting.
But it makes you go, what did he see? What did he see that I didn't?
Have you ever asked him or follow?
I mean, really, like he's just one of those friends that, like, you know, we really don't have like serious like conversations and stuff like that. It's just more about, you know, like laughing and joking and stuff. Like when you try to talk about,
I think that's a big part of men's culture.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like a big part. Like
Yeah.
connecting on this level is too fucking scary.
But I think
Oh,
too.
it's
But I think. Go ahead.
no. I want to hear.
It's being known, and
Yeah.
who wants to be known at their deepest level?
Yeah.
Because if I would have told other people my story, they wouldn't have liked me.
Yeah.
Why would I want people not to like me?
I just
My whole
want you to
goal
know
is to
I
get
like you
people
more.
to like
I like you
me.
more now.
Yeah.
Right, you do because you know me now, but like Joe Schmo off the street, or you know, a woman off the street, they hear this, they're gonna be like, nope,
Yeah.
But I think
that's
it's
not
like,
safe. But sorry to interrupt. I just
Yeah,
want to
go
finish my
ahead.
thought. You know, you have someone that's AA or an alcoholic, and they go to AA. They're like, hey, I've been sober for 15 years. You know, they're like, oh, that's awesome. Where do you ever hear of someone saying, oh, I'm a sex addict, but I have been sober for 15 years? People are going to like pick their kids up, look at you, and walk away.
Yeah.
And which is why I respect the shit out of you for talking about it, because it needs to be talked about.
Because it's so prevalent.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, I think that's the dirty little secret of society, is the level of which that controls. I mean, to a degree, world powers. Look at our former president.
Yeah.
And the impact.
Kind of amazing if you think about it.
Oh.
Most
but-
powerful people on the planet struggle.
Look at Jeffrey Epstein and that whole world. I mean, that dude was the fall guy for the big boys. You can call him a devil, and he was an absolute devil, and so is Ghislaine Maxwell.
Anybody that preys on children,
Absolutely. But they were the setup. They were the people controlling it for the big boys.
Yeah.
So that they didn't get in trouble.
Yeah.
And that's so, I mean, and it goes back to biology, but the advent of technology that makes things so much more real. We have the metaverse now. And if you don't think that porn is going to drive that, or is already
I'm sure it
driving
is. I'm sure it is.
100%. It's going to have create more incels and more men that hate women for breathing because they think that they're God's gift to women, and they don't have to do any work to make the woman appreciate them, love them. They are so great that they just, you should love me.
Oh my gosh, this breeds right into that whole concept of
Do you say breed and talking?
it breathes right into weaponized incompetence.
Yes. That's
Like-
the hot topic that we wanted to
I
sneak
started
in.
to
We
bring
never
it up,
even
and I was like,
finished
wait.
what you guys were
I know what we
from
wanted
the
to
last
say. But
podcast.
I know.
what was that?
I didn't hear your goals.
So actually, mine are. My biggest thing this year is forgiveness and acceptance, so that I can move past the anger that I have harbored for years.
Oh,
So
that's
that-
so cool.
I hope it is. I hope I can do it because it's proven. I don't know what it is. I'm a big gut feeling person, and I have learned to stop forcing things. Like, this emotion will end at this time. In 12 days, I will stop feeling like this. I have learned that I have to just go through it and ride the waves. And you guys have seen the waves where I'll disappear because I'm in the middle of one. And then I come out of it, and the waves are not nearly as high, and the valleys are not nearly as low. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for consistency so that I can do better for others.
Less reactivity, like we talked about in the last podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, that feels good.
Less reactivity and closure, because with that forgiveness, I will have closure and be able to move past these events that are family, are professional, all of them that have kind of coalesced since my mom passed away. And this just tornado of bullshit that I've lived through. And once I forget, and I really do, I've when I say that I'm not going to put a time frame on it, I finally have felt that relief. There was a time a year ago where I didn't feel safe in my house because a person that had attacked me drove past my house every single day. And I didn't know that, because I knew that they carried weapons with them, and I knew that they used them, and the type of people they were, where people would drive by my house and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I had to make sure that my family was safe. That's the level of shit that I was in the middle of. And so to have that forgiveness and to find that peace that comes with it, because I've always been a peaceful person. I'm very aggressive. I believe in aggression. I think it's a very good thing, as long as it's controlled. As long as it has boundaries. Yes.
Yeah.
But I have not had peace in a long time. And so maybe peace is a better way to describe that. Mm-hmm. Because with the forgiveness and with the closure, I will gain that peace. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm working towards this year. And I can't force it, because the more I have tried to force things, and this is going back to when I would sit there and ask myself why Dad would choose to drink rather than spend time with me, or why, a myriad of different things. If I force them, all I do is set myself up for failure. And I'm fucking tired of failing. Even though failure is a good thing. It's not this is an emotional failure, not a professional or something like that. So it's that, just let it go through me. Let the pain escape and just give it away, because all it's doing is hurting me. And if it's hurting me, it's hurting others, because I'm not able to be the best I can be for everyone else. So that's my big goal for this year, is that forgiveness that leads to closure, and then peace. And it's peace beautiful. Is something.
It's beautiful, honestly.
I hope so, because I really want it, and I feel like I'm getting there. It's the anxiety is leaving, the depression is leaving, and being proactive about it though. I can't just sit back and expect it to happen. If I sit here in this chair long enough, peace will come. No, I'll be a bigger piece because I haven't moved, but I have to do the work. And that's what I think the reason we talk, circling back to our talk about men, I think that's the biggest part of that, is that guys go work hard. Guys deal with problems, and we're only supposed to be big and strong and tough. And when we're vulnerable and we take that shield down, then people can attack us. And we're designed, and it's ingrained in us that we must protect ourselves and protect others. And if we let that shield down, then people can. But for me, the biggest thing, as I've gone into this and people have clowned me or told me it's stupid or whatever, I'm like, I don't give a fuck what you think. That's the biggest thing.
That's the first step, the first big step of like.
And a lot of this, the shit that I went through last year, and people only concerned about the drama behind it, not whether I was all right or what the story was. They wanted the drama piece. And guess what? They got a piece, all right. Peace out, motherfucker, because you're not in my life anymore. Yeah. I don't need people that don't care about me, that only want to hear about the drama so they can talk about it with other people.
What's funny is that reminds me of when you said your friends were like, oh, we liked you when you were bigger because you're funny. It's almost the same thing.
Yep. Exactly. Because then they could put me down more. They could talk more shit to me. They could talk shit about, the financial issues I had or what. I don't give a shit. Yeah, I lost my house. Somebody fucked me. I deal with it. I have to move on. That's all I can do. Somebody was malicious to make money and I was their pawn. I can't do anything about it. I have to be at peace with that. And if people in Washougal or Camas want to talk shit, fuck them. I don't care. Because I have people around me now that don't give a shit about me feeding them or doing things for them. They care about me.
Yeah.
Not what I can do for them.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something to be said about that, because I think for me, before, like when I was married, like my life was different. Like I had more financial, access and stuff like that. And, I had like access to beach houses and Blazer tickets and all this stuff. And now some of these people that were there for the ride are not around now. And
they ain't ride or die.
Yeah.
They're just ride.
Yeah, they're just ride. Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. It's kind of funny, like when you think about, your past life or, college days or high school days or whatever. Like you just have certain people around you that you're like, oh, I would do anything for you. I'm going to be your best friend and this and that. And then, when something tough comes up, they're nowhere to be found.
Ghosted.
Yeah.
Call him Casper.
Yeah, exactly. And
Hey, you still go through that even when you think you've healed and that you've attracted the right kind of people.
Yeah.
I've been going through that kind of recently, actually. I had a really emotional last week because of it, actually, because getting sick the way I did and seeing who cared and who didn't, who just ghosted, just disappeared, was shocking to me.
Wow, Gary. Wow.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Gary.
I tried to get the CO2 detector or whatever you
need.
need.
I didn't even need to do anything.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it was just the people that were like, hey, Sanka, you dead? Like, like the ones that were like, you okay? Like, you breathing? Like, that meant everything to me.
Yeah.
But the people that knew what was going on and pieced the fuck out for 2 weeks is not, it's not like I'm like, bye. You obviously don't care about me. It was the shocking realization that the relationship was not what I thought it was. And it's like, oh, okay, wait. I don't hold any judgment on them because I quite frankly don't know why they acted the way they did and chose to be the way they were. And I think that's the other thing that's about being a few years into this journey is that I've realized that I give way more room for people than I ever have. I can look at somebody and feel like to general society, they're scum. And I look at them with so much compassion where it's like, because I don't know.
Homeless people.
What?
Homeless people. Huge.
Even really rich, lonely people or people that have lost a lot that still have a lot, that have no reason to complain, quote unquote, It's like, I don't know, like it's just a different journey now. And so it's been interesting going through this emotional like friendship loss that I did not expect. And I call it a loss because I'm realizing that the relationship is not what I thought it was. It's not progressing in the way that I thought it was. It's a friendship of convenience that I thought was more than that.
So with those people, like, do you plan on just acting like nothing's wrong, or do you plan on like taking
I'm
a step
gonna
back,
treat it the way I see it now.
Yeah.
Not that I'm gonna like disappear or I'm gonna make them think that they've done something wrong, because I'm not gonna be that toxic person that's like, how come you didn't bring me food every day? Like, I didn't communicate that I wanted that from them. I couldn't function, first of all. I couldn't, but because everybody's on their own journey. I don't know, maybe holidays were hard for them. It's these two friends in general. And maybe both of them had a really awful 2 weeks. I genuinely don't know. Yeah. And but fool me once, fool me twice, right? Like, I'm not going to let them put me in a position where I feel hurt. Yeah. Because of my expectations of the friendship that it's not. Yeah. So I just see it for what it is now and will treat it accordingly. And I'm changing my expectations, quite honestly, of like, I don't expect that from them. That's not kind to expect that from them when they are not in that headspace to be able to give that kind of friendship.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is like, I've heard this multiple times and I always have to remind myself is unspoken expectations lead to future resentments.
Absolutely. And baggage galore.
So and I would always have to say that to myself in my relationships. And I was like, if I don't say what my expectations are, or they know what I want or what I need, then how can I expect that from them? That's on me, not on them.
Balls in your court.
But it would build resentment on myself,
right,
towards them.
Same. I went through that a lot because I gave. And actually, I think that was the interesting thing about getting to know myself better and realizing how not everybody's like that. And that's okay. We need diversity on this planet. We need to have all these different personalities that give a lot, and some that destroy the things that need to be destroyed, and the ones that are the glue in the relationships. Like we have to have the variety. It's necessary. Mm-hmm. And once I acknowledged that I don't want people to be like me, that'd be kind of boring. That wouldn't lead to growth.
Unbelievably boring.
Right? Unbelievably boring. And I would like diversity in my life. Like, some of my favorite people are completely different from me. Like we are completely different people. Like, I would drive 45 minutes to bring them soup, but they are the person that would take somebody down a few notches if they decided to come at me in a bar or something. You know what I mean? Person. I would not do that. I would be like, we're leaving. I would not choose the confrontation because I don't know that person. I don't know if they're safe. I don't, and I've got friends in my life where I know that would not be the case. They would, they would come down. I don't know. It just, I think it's important that we give each other that space to grow and change. And I think that's why my marriage has worked out, is that I've accepted that we all have to grow, and there are mistakes. I was talking about it this morning with my husband when we were talking about weaponized incompetence. So if you guys don't really know what that phrase means, because it's kind of
I remember I told you I wanted to try to guess what it is.
Oh, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Okay. I'll guess too.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So what my thought of that is that when somebody actively acts as if they don't know. Okay, let's use an example of a husband and a wife have $25,000 in a bank account, and the wife is the one in charge of it all. And then the husband a year later says, where'd all the money go? And the wife said, well, we went on this trip, we went on that. You were a part of all of the money spending, but now you're acting as if you have no idea what happened, and you're blaming, the husband is blaming the wife for all of the money disappearing, yet was a part of the journey the entire way. Basically acting dumb to project the shame, the accountability of where that $25,000 went.
Yep. Oh,
okay, wait. Hold on, Gary.
I got so much to say.
I'll look back.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I think it's just, something as simple as, maybe like a husband and wife or something like that. And then the husband just saying that, like, well, I don't know how to change the diapers, so then I can't really do it, And I just think that for me, like, I grew up like in a family of like, pretend like you don't know how to do something. Yep. So then nobody's ever going to ask you to do that again. You fuck it up on purpose, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right, Mike, what do you think it is?
Yeah.
The Karens of the world.
Okay.
They're so incompetent on certain things that they feel this self-righteous anger to attack someone over it, and they have no fucking clue what's going on. Yeah. That to me is weaponizing incompetence.
All right, I got a phrase for you guys. Weaponized incompetence is willful ignorance.
Okay. Yep. Exactly.
Because it applies all across the board. Like, as I've contemplated the subject, because on TikTok, for some reason, I got stuck on this like complaining woman For You page. Like, it just, I was kind of like, why is this? Okay, I understand. Everybody's got problems. It's fine. But I was like, every other video was these women complaining about men or dating, and just, they always have everybody's got a place. They need to have a place to, connect with people, whatever. But it just caused me to kind of think about it, because I feel like all along my marriage, in the 16 years I've been married, I find myself defending men a lot, because I have no sisters. I have all brothers. Most of my best friends are men. I'm on a men's podcast, and I'm the only woman here. Like, for whatever reason, I feel like I've found myself in this place where I'm wanting to defend men all the time. However, there is a modicum of truth to a lot of this. Like just what you're saying, Gary, about the changing diapers. And
Do you think it's a man-dominated issue?
yes.
Okay.
Not because it's men's fault necessarily. It's the way society has set men up. Because all of a sudden it was popular to be incompetent.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Homer Simpson, married with children. What is it? Family Guy. Like, if you look all the way down the line, all these really pop culture, big like media things that we all grew up with, incompetent men.
Oh,
And-
if you look at sitcoms and all, I mean, look at Full House and how maybe Full House was. No, it was.
No,
I mean,
the Full House, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that also goes back, because I want to expand on that a little bit, to the 60s and 70s. Again, the June and Wally Cleaver.
Even then, it was full of incompetent men.
Absolutely. But the
Yeah.
man only worked, and when he got home, he had 3 fingers of Glenlivet, and the
Checked
wife
out.
served him food and served him completely.
Yeah.
And then you had an entire generation of men that were raised by mothers that have had it beat into their mind that little boys don't do anything because it's the mother's job. And then the mothers feel guilty for asking the little boys to grow up and actually know how to iron or do their fucking laundry or cook or anything like that.
Yeah. No, it's
I mean, so it goes back a long
it goes
time.
a long way. I mean,
It's like the Wonder Years.
just like the Wonder Years. Yeah. And honestly, my mom and I have spent a lot of time talking about this concept, but I never heard it put into a phrase so succinctly like that. You know, weaponized incompetence, because it's kind of like, how do you weaponize incompetence? It's like, well, let me tell you.
Well, it just completely takes all accountability
It's
away from
kinda
one
like-
of the parties.
Yeah, it's kind of like gaslighting.
Oh,
Like, and actually the reason why I had this conversation this morning is Sky asked me what we were going to record about. And I was like, well, we're going to talk about this and that. And I was like, but I'd like to get their take on this phrase, weaponized incompetence. And he was like, eh? Like, he was just like, what? And I said, okay, I'm going to give you some examples. And the first example, and he and I have had many conversations about this, and it's been a long time. It's been 8, 9, 10 years since I've had babies. I ran myself ragged when we had children. I ran
trying
myself
to be super mom?
into the ground. Like, yeah, trying to be super mom. I ruined my physical health that I'm still dealing with, and I'm 8 years postpartum, like with my last. And I completely accept the responsibility of the fact that I didn't discuss my boundaries, like you were talking about, Mike. Like, I didn't tell him how much it meant to me if he did this, and that. I didn't tell him because he was at a place in his life where he was going to school full time, he was working full time, and we had small babies in the house, and he was trying to build a better life for us. And we were living in an 800 square foot duplex. And it was like, I felt like we were all fighting for our life at that point. You know, it was like, we were all just like trying to get by. And I did not want to put more onto him. But that's my fault. That's my bad, because I didn't disclose what was really ruining my physical health, because I wanted to power through it. I could do anything. I'm a woman. I'm an independent, strong woman, like all that bullshit. And, the best example I can give is I saw a TikTok of this woman who started taking video. She was walking up to her house, opened the door, and the husband's sitting on a recliner holding the baby underneath their armpits and just leaning back in the recliner and just holding the baby. And the baby's flailing and screaming, and baby sees mama, and baby's like, "Mom!" and reaches for mom, and he doesn't even look at his wife and just hands the baby to her and says, "Here, she obviously wants you anyway."
Yeah.
And that triggered me to
I
a
think
place that I
that
did not
is-
want to go back to. Like, I was just like, I didn't sleep for 13 months. Like, and when I say I didn't sleep, I mean it. Like, I mean, it destroyed my liver. I gained so much weight. It darn near put me into an autoimmune disease. Like, I mean, I was unwell, physically unwell. But I wanted my husband to sleep because he deserved to sleep to be able to blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Do you know what it would have meant to me if he would have gotten up in the middle of the night and gotten the baby and brought the baby to me? I could have possibly gone back to sleep afterwards. Like, things like that. But I never said that to him. I made the mistake of not making that a priority because I was trying to protect him or help him, or I don't know what I was doing. So he looked at me when I started explaining weaponized incompetence, and he was like, do I do that? And I was like, you did.
You have.
And yeah, I was like, you did. And I was like, because he took the standpoint of, I don't wake up well in the middle of the night. I'm already working myself ragged into the ground. I have nothing left to give.
You always have more.
I don't want to. And I was just like, okay, so then what's left? Me.
Yeah.
I have to give more than I can give. And I will break myself to get to that point, to feel like we're meeting those needs, because in the man role relationship, that's the woman's job. Fuck that.
I don't subscribe to that, but I was raised.
We always said that we weren't going to subscribe to it, and we didn't. But there's something about the cultural programming and the nurturing behavior. I'm way more nurturing than he is, that I decided I was going to take that weight, and I take the responsibility that I let him do that. But that whole that phrase of like, he handed the baby to his wife and said, you know how to do it better than me anyway. I started, because I'm like I was trying to understand the phrase in weaponized incompetence, and I learned a lot from comment sections in those kind of situations. And I was reading some comments, and one woman spoke up and said, look, I've been a professional nanny for 20 years. And she's like, a lot of times men blame women, blame it on the DNA of like, you're more nurturing and you're made for this, you're built for this. I mean, you have boobs, you're breastfeeding, like you're built for this. Like, I'm not built for this. They don't want me. And she's like, look, I've never had children of my own. I don't share DNA with any of the babies and the young toddlers that I cared for. And if I can choose to learn, if I can choose to get out of my ignorance and choose how to learn to care for this child, so can the father.
Oh, it's mental weakness is what I call it.
Yeah.
Because it is a desire to not do your best for your children.
Yeah.
And I have a huge issue with that. There are times when we don't want to do things. Absolutely. That's completely different than a willingness to do them, but just saying, I don't feel like it. Because, or not, what I mean is not having a willingness to do it because if you think that the other person that's their job, quote unquote, as if there are defined roles in a marriage, you define the roles, the husband and wife. It's your job to define those. If one of you is better at laundry and the other one is better at cooking dinner, then you work on that.
That's what we do in our house. Like, yeah, I don't do anybody's laundry. They do their own laundry, including my kids. I'm
trying to get Michelle to get away from that. Honestly,
it's so hard.
She has a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old, and
at that point, it's easier to just do it for them.
Well, yeah. And that's what she does. But she runs herself ragged. She works 12 hours when she works.
I don't even know her, and I know she's a boss that way.
She pushes. She's herself. A nurse, and she works 12-hour shifts. Then she comes home and has to clean the house, and she's so burnt out and tired by the end of the day. So, I've been a little bit slower. So I've gone over and I've vacuumed and I'll clean and I'll do the dishes and I'll do these things to help her out. And, but what keeps me going is these comments. I sent a thing. I said, hey, I got Christmas put away. Lights are down. The garage is organized, and I'm working on working on your vacuum because it wasn't working. It had a little clog in the hose. That was it. So
but it could take forever to find.
But she didn't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
And so now she has a working vacuum again. She goes, I love you, hon. You are so good to me.
And that means everything.
And that to me, that was like, man, I'll just keep going. Because that's the recognition and that stuff that we were talking about earlier. That's the stuff that I love. I say those things to my
husband about how he treats me. Like, when I was at my darkest days, like, I remember I would just retreat to my studio and sit there.
Well, and it gets down to a deeper level of doing things or servicing others, taking care of other people in a way that you're not expecting anything back, not even a thank you, but just being out there,
that can take you out of that willful ignorance. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the definition of willful ignorance is you're choosing not to look, choosing not to learn. And once you choose to learn, you're going to bump out of that.
I could have been like, oh, that's your house, not my problem.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm like, no.
You know where the weaponized incompetence comes into that, though? Is some men would go, I don't want to stomp on your autonomy and your privacy.
Oh, yeah. They weaponized mental health awareness.
That's the weaponized part of it, is it turns into... gaslighting all over the place. I mean, it's like there was one TikTok.
Or you didn't ask for help. Well, should they?
Okay, that's exactly what I was going to bring up. Because, I mean, while I am a huge advocate for if you don't tell them, they don't know.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, people can't read your mind. My whole marriage has been led that way. And it's still been hard for me to, like, recognize what I needed to tell him in the first place. But I saw another series that was part of the weaponized incompetence. And it was this woman, I'm noticing a lot of women are doing this for some reason, where they feel like they need to record things to feel safe.
Yeah, and then to justify when...
But not physical safety.
No, it's a mental thing.
It's emotional safety.
What happens is the person will say, oh, no, I never do that. And
I
then
never said that.
Yeah, and then they'll say, well, tell me exactly when. As if you fucking write it. Okay, it's 12:27 on Friday.
Yeah, that's not what it's about. Is how that, whatever that was, made that person feel. That's the part that matters. Well, and this is what this woman gets into. It was a 7-part series that I was like, I had to seek out all the parts because I was like, what is going on? And it was this lady essentially like coming at her husband. The video was facing her. It was a live. Somebody had taken the live and spliced it into a reaction to her stuff. And it was her de-weaponizing his incompetence. And it was really interesting. She didn't mention once, I'm going to divorce you. She didn't say things that were basically hurtful. She was just like, look, if you expect me to be physically attracted to somebody I have to mother, it's not going to happen. It's not how this works.
Yes.
It's bad, right?
Keep going.
Yeah.
Be going.
Since nobody's watching, Will just punched himself in the face with his chicken hand.
Yeah.
Because he's like, yes, thank you. And it's like, you can't be attracted to another person that you have to mother, that you have to treat like another child. And she goes, do you know why? Because that's called pedophilia. And I was like, oh, when she said that. And she was just like, I cannot be attracted to you when I feel like I have to mother you. And she goes, and guess what? Because the big thing was he was upset with her that she got 5-minute notice invite to go see a movie after the kids had gone to bed. It was late at night. And he's like, you're choosing your friends over me. And she was like, you're damn straight. You're damn skippy I am. She was
you know what I say is I tell Michelle all the time, I'm like, you go hang out with the girls.
Yeah.
Go do some girl time.
It's
go
necessary.
Do that stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely necessary. And the fact that this guy had a problem with it because it didn't bleed into what he expected for his evening is weaponized incompetence. It's like, figure the fuck out.
Yeah. It's like, insecurity.
Yeah, that is your problem. And she's like, and you have a problem you have to figure out. And he kept raising his voice. And she goes, and also, you have to stop bringing your children into our marital issues. And blah, I mean, she just went for him. And she was kind but clear. And she didn't call him names. She didn't threaten divorce. She didn't throw things. She didn't make him feel physically unsafe. And after the first few videos, he didn't say a word.
Really?
Because he knew there was a certain point. But yet at the very end, he still was just like, well, I mean, if you expect that respect from me. And I was like, oh my God.
But see, go ahead.
A lot of that is environmental, though, too, of how that person was raised.
Exactly.
It's a learned behavior.
I want to ask Gary, because you have the violence that we don't have as an experience. Which I think you kind of said, that you have encountered the weaponized incompetence. How did violence get involved in that? Or was it if grandma told your uncle to do something, would he say, fuck you, grandma? Or would he would?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, it's funny just, like, sitting here listening to the stories because it's, like, what you guys are saying makes perfect sense. And, like, to listen to you say that you make your kids and stuff do the laundry, like, that's great. And, like, that's going to help them so much later in life.
Oh.
I've had several people be like, if somebody would have done that for my husband, we would have a different home life. I'm like, oh, geez. Right. Okay. Glad my son is learning how to do laundry.
When you go through a couple divorces and you're living on your own, you have to do your own fucking laundry.
Yeah, you realize how much.
So do you want to get to that point?
Yeah.
For me, like, my uncle, he's like in his late 50s or something like that. And he's still like lives at home, like with his parents. He's like never moved out, never been married, never really had a job, for longer than like a year or something.
But see, how come he wasn't he was enabled all the way through that?
Exactly. And just like
I refuse to do that to my children.
He doesn't cook for himself. He doesn't do like any laundry.
He just thinks he's a fucking king.
Yeah. And it's so
and
funny.
He's not.
Yeah, because I'll talk to him, like probably once every 3 months or something like that, just to check in, and he'll be like, God, it's just so bad around here. It's so crazy. And I'm like, why
do
don't
something
you
about it.
fucking move out? And just
Yeah.
like he'll like complain about his just things being not folded correctly, like his food not being made properly, and I'm like,
Where
Yo.
did this entitlement come from, do you think? I mean, if you're comfortable talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
it,
So-
because
yeah,
that gets to deep shit.
yeah. For me, it's funny because like, you know, like me and him were raised by like the like same, like his parents are my grandparents essentially. So basically, like, I would go and ask them, you know, for like money to go to the store and get a candy bar or chips or whatever, and they'd say no. And then he would go to them and they'd give him $50 or $100 or whatever, right? And, you know, he just always got things handed to him, you know, whether it was
Never had to
you
work
know,
for it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like whether it was
But dude, that's like weaponized incompetence on the flip
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
Of like that was
Yeah.
the weaponized incompetence was enabled
Yeah,
and
yeah.
celebrated
yeah,
rewarded.
yeah, just
It's
it
like,
was-
what?
Yeah, it was just like very interesting because like for me, like it made me almost hate them because I thought, you know, they were like treating me different. I'm
Yeah.
like, what
Well, they
the
were.
fuck is going on, right? But then finally, like a lot happened, and my grandfather was in hospice, and he was at his daughter's house, you know, like in his dying days. And one of the things that he told me was they had to treat me different. They had to talk to me different, you know, because the world's going to look at me different, for one. And for two, they realized where they fucked up raising my uncle. Because
So
And they felt like that was too late.
yeah. And for me, like, that just really like hit me.
Damn.
And you know, for that, you know, for a few reasons, you know, like I'm definitely thankful. Like I wish I would have known that earlier.
Why didn't they tell you?
Because it was just a different environment. But yeah, like if my uncle didn't want to do something, he would just yell and scream and pull out some sort of weapon and flash it, you know, to people.
Why didn't your grandfather like beat the shit out of him or something? Because that's the language they spoke.
Because
obviously,
because like they were all just very terrified of him. They were just very scared. Like he's just one of those people that has weapons but doesn't need to have that shit. And it's honestly fucking scary because like he would just always like, there was no talking, there was no bartering, there was no like, if you do this, I'll meet you in the middle and do this. It was, if he doesn't feel like doing something, then he's going to let you know, and he's going to scare you to the point of being like, well, I'm not going to do that.
and
So-
no one finally stood up to him
No.
and just beat the.
No. So
Is he
so-
like Debo or something? I mean,
No, he's like just a fucked up like individual, man. Like he just.
So
and
if
that's,
he-
and
if he-
that's really
if-
unsafe for a lot
Yeah.
of people,
Oh.
and emotionally, physically. And people do weird things when they feel unsafe.
Yeah.
And they do irrational things, quite frankly. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that a lot of times when you feel physically unsafe,
Yeah.
all reason goes out the door.
Definitely.
Especially if you love them.
Definitely.
Can you imagine loving somebody that much
Yeah.
that you're allowing yourself to be that uncomfortable all
Yeah.
the like I can't imagine.
Yeah, like it's honestly like kind of funny, like for me to like sit back and really think about like my childhood and think about like the things like that was going on, because it's so off-putting. It's so different. Like these things are not normal, but these are things that I didn't notice until, you know, I got older and I had friends, you know, come over, or, you know, when I'm.
I think it's how most trauma is. It's a
Yeah.
slow realization of like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So yeah, like just to hear you, you know, talking about the laundry thing, or, you know, to hear you guys saying the things that you're saying, I'm like, I mean, that makes sense. But like, if my family tried to do that with him, like it.
I will say though,
Yeah.
it's interesting, like forcing my kids. Paxton actually made his own breakfast hash yesterday.
Oh, wow.
He'll be 12 on Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be 12 on Saturday. And it was really funny. It's really uncomfortable for him to do things in the kitchen. For whatever reason, his brain turns off. He's burnt ramen in the microwave before, you know, like he just doesn't, I don't know. It's like he doesn't feel the confidence in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I told him, I'm like, you got to take care of your own breakfast. And this has been the conversation in our house over and over and over again. You have all these resources at your fingertip and you are choosing not to use them. That's not my fault. That's your fault. Figure it out.
thank you.
Like, Yeah, like, and
Do not excuse. Oh, he's just
Yeah.
a boy, so I'll make it for him.
I mean, my
Fuck
8-year-old
that
daughter can
noise.
bake muffins. She can bake cupcakes. I'll let her use the oven. And granted, I told her,
Yeah.
I'm like, you need help pulling it out. She will fall into the oven. She's so light.
Yeah.
And so there's certain levels of like, hey, this is my boundary. Is that if you want to do this stuff, you can, and I trust you, and I've seen you do it enough. But she asked for it. She pushed for it. You know where she doesn't do it? It's cleaning. My gosh, that girl is dirty. Like her room is such a disaster right now because I wasn't there to be like, go clean your room. Hey, good. What's going on there? And like, I gotta tell you, parenting that way of like teaching your kids to be responsible human
It's
beings
so
is
hard.
so hard.
Oh, you feel nitpicky.
Yeah,
and
well,
that's why-
you're forced to look at your own shit.
Yeah.
And I think that's why that's so hard to parent that way. And I get why maybe your grandparents couldn't parent that way they wanted to if they were dealing with their own trauma that they hadn't really worked out yet, or it took them 40 years to figure it out, and so during that time they started to treat you differently or whatever. And it's like, my grandparents went through that with my cousin. He actually passed away from lung cancer about 20 years ago. He was 20 years older than me. And he was an only child.
Really?
And my grandparents enabled drug addiction, alcoholism.
Isn't it crazy how people that have it made turn to that stuff? 'Cause
Yeah.
they don't have to work for anything.
My
They have no
my
goals.
grandfather worked for Boeing for like 40 years. Like he was well decorated. He created the radio that's in the current Boeing airplanes.
Really?
He invented that. Like
Wow.
he was an electrical engineer for Boeing. Insanely intelligent man. Super quiet. Tall drink of water. His hair turned white when he was in his 20s. When I say he was a little bit of a head case, I mean it. Like he had a lot of trauma of things that happened to him during his life. That wasn't his fault. It was just things that happened to him. And by the time my cousin came around, they were so tired of dealing with their kids' bullshit and that they hadn't dealt with their own bullshit. By the time that their grandchild came around, they just went, whatever.
Yeah.
And my mom was traumatized by watching that because she was a lot like you. She got held to a different standard. And she just turned into, why do you do this to each other? And then it just turned into all this like what's going on here? And a lot of it was, it's just when you don't deal with your own shit, it passes to a different generation in a way that you don't expect.
Yeah.
You know, and then by the time you do deal with it, sometimes it's too late. Sometimes those patterns are there. Sometimes those behaviors are already in place and they really wanted to do right by you. It would have been nice if they could have communicated.
Earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
much sooner.
But it happens, and because I can definitely see where that would create a situation where you could resent them for that. Like, why didn't you tell me that? How come you didn't communicate that to me? At least you had that closure. Like, my dad died, and I saw him, I think, 3 or 4 weeks before he died, and we left on a very bad note because I finally called him on his bullshit on his drinking. And I never got that closure of talking to him because I revered him. But to heal that wound, that at that point I was 23 years old. I had 23 years of the hell of my dad being an alcoholic and that being my world, knowing that he loved that bottle more than me. And so I hope that you're thankful for that and you appreciate it. But as you move forward with your own son and your significant other down the road, and Mike, you as well, and I mean, you and Sky have obviously talked about this, but keeping those open lines of communication so that wonder isn't there for them. That if they have a question, talk to you about it. And that's something that, you know, when I have tough discussions or we have tough discussions with the kids, which we've had a number of them because of the shit show of our families, that they don't feel intimidated or scared to ask me why that happened or why do I talk about it, because they're used to the stigma of society telling them that these dirty little secrets need to stay hidden, yet dad is talking about it or confronting the issue of his weight or whatever it might be. So it's, and mainly for the listeners, take that opportunity to, and don't say you don't want to open up wounds, because the wounds are always open. Now you can work towards closing them.
Kids are not, they're not dumb.
No.
Like, that's why I had to have open communication about the shit that I was going through just this past year. And, prior, Hunter asked me, why are you and mom not together? Well, one, it wasn't a good fit, but two, I was a shitty person, and I'd see him like he doesn't want to focus on school. He wants to focus on all these girls. And I'm like, dude, you are 11 years old. Why are you so girl crazy right now where you're FaceTiming them or you're talking to them and, oh, I got this girlfriend this week and I got this girlfriend next week. And I got, it's just like, forget
What
all the
grade is he in?
noise. He's a sixth grader.
Yeah, I had a lot of girlfriends back then too.
But-
I've been hearing a lot about it too from Paxton on the front of like he doesn't understand the changes that he's witnessing in his friends where he's like, why do they care about this stuff?
Because they
Like,
didn't last year.
Yeah, they didn't 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's always been like that. And I think in his case, Hunter's case, it's been more of a generational thing. And same thing for drinking and for drugs and for, you said you didn't want to grow up and you never wanted to be like that. I saw my dad and I'm like, he's an alcoholic. And my mom says he did drugs. And so I don't ever want to be like that. But I didn't see the infidelity side where he left my mom for my now stepmom, and so I didn't ever say I didn't want to be like that. And I wish I would have, I wish I would have seen that at 5 years old, but I didn't. And
Do you think he saw it? Do you think he saw it well enough to tell you, I want to change, I want to be different?
No, he went away.
That's probably, and that whole phrase of generational healing, like holding the line and being like, this is going to stop here. This generational trauma is going to stop here, is really about bringing it to light, talking about it, being open enough to be like, I'm not perfect and I don't claim to be perfect. And these are mistakes I've made. I don't want this for you. That is hard.
And it doesn't always have to be from father to son. It could be mother to son, father to daughter, whatever. Because, our kids they see what we go through.
Yeah.
And
they're not stupid.
No.
They're way more emotionally intelligent than they even realize.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's the thing about kids is they see and feel things because some kids especially are super empathic and they don't know what to do with it.
My oldest, she's like, she didn't want to date all through high school. She didn't want to have sex with anybody. And the boys that you guys have seen her. She's a very beautiful girl.
She's gorgeous.
And she said, I'm not having sex in high school. And guys have tried and tried and tried. And she's like, nope. And then they go away or they dump her. And
it's not fun.
And she's like, I don't want to do that.
She will be so
but
grateful
because
she did.
and she says because of how I was and how her mom was. How our relationship, she goes, you guys suck at picking people. And she goes, and her mom's name's Andrea. Andrea and I talk to each other and we're like, God, do we fuck up our daughter because of how our relationships have been where with different people, and so she's just like scarred now. She doesn't want a relationship with someone.
Nah.
No, not at all.
No, but I'm seeing she's honestly probably more emotionally further along than her mom and I are
because y'all are
because
open.
of us.
Yeah. And you guys are
That's key.
teaching her. Yeah, no, that's so good. My husband was on the opposite side of that where he was witnessing what his parents are doing and it was so public. There was no mistaking it because they made it public. They were very passionate people. And
what does passionate have to do
angry.
with public? Oh,
angry, like
the police
confronting
showed up?
each other
Oh.
at each other's workplaces and like it, special.
It was some
Couldn't
Maury
hide.
Povich shit.
Pretty much, yeah. And he couldn't hide from it. He knew exactly what was happening, and everyone knew what was happening because of it. And
He knew his wife was cheating on him.
and vice versa. It was very public. Everything about it was public, and so people were distancing themselves from them because it was the Mormon culture. They were distancing themselves from them, and he was forced to look at it because it was public. And didn't make him less of a man whore, he'll admit it. But he knew that when it was time to pick somebody that he was like, I knew exactly what I was looking for. He's like, I knew exactly what I didn't want. He's like, I didn't know exactly what I wanted because I don't know who does at that age, but he's like, I knew exactly what I didn't want.
Well, and I'm pretty sure I told Bria, I said, you better never find someone like me because I've not been a good example for you.
But she could see the
Yeah.
example you are now.
Yeah, that's
Now, but not how I was.
Oh,
Right. And that's actually a great gauge too.
Yes.
She will find that red flag so fast. She'll be like, red flag, run, you know, and she'll be
because
out.
you have not hidden it.
Yes.
You have been
I
so
did for a long time.
Oh, you did. But
But in her formidable time of dating, you're not. It's not too late. You didn't wait too long. You didn't wait till she was 40,
Yeah.
you know, and already been through several divorces and gone through the same path. You did the hard work and faced all the things that feel fearful and shameful, and she's going to reap the benefits of that.
absolutely.
I'm very hopeful of that. I hope all three of them, you know.
That's brave. That's hard. That's
And-
like intense. And you did it, doing it.
Doing it, yeah, because it's not something that stops.
Yeah.
And what you'll find, I think, is they won't want you to stop. They want to see, because they've seen Dad humanized. They have
They've seen me at my lowest. I mean, Maddie has seen me break down crying on the floor like in a ball, and like that scarred her, and she went the opposite way. But like, I mean, those hard things for them to see. I mean, I put them through a lot with the breakups and the moving and the kind of not having a solid place for them to like grow up and be kids.
Yeah.
They've had to grow up and pretty fast.
And that's part of, as I learned about the adult children of alcoholics, is that we are forced to grow up so much faster. And that's why, and this is something I've realized about myself, why we are still children in our adult years in many ways. I know for me, it has been revolving around people pleasing and not letting people down, because I need to make sure that they're all right, because I took care of my dad. I mean, he would be drunk on the floor and I would have to care for him at 9 years old.
Well, there's that Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you're dealing with trauma, it's because you don't feel physically, emotionally safe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you don't feel physically or emotionally safe, you aren't going nowhere. You are staying exactly at that age maturity level that you're at. That's why there's adults that don't have their maturity level together. And you're how old are you? Like, it's because there's something in their life that has stopped them at that bar and they don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's why it's so important to be open and honest about our shortcomings, because then it models that behavior for children to be able to be like that and be open and tell us stuff, because they need to learn in a different way. And the only way they're going to learn is if they tell us stuff. But if they don't feel safe emotionally or physically, forget that.
Oh, there is no.
No, they're not going to
learn. When I was a
learn.
kid, I did not communicate with my parents or my mom and my stepdad at all. And my dad was in Alaska. But, I mean, I might as well have been another person to them, because I controlled the flow of information so well.
And they thought they knew you.
Oh.
That's an Enneagram 2 behavior.
Yeah.
I'm still coming out of it with my husband, where I'm like, because I told him today, when I told him that, yeah, you totally did the weaponized incompetence, we talked for about 10 more minutes, and I looked at him and I said, that was pretty amazing that you handled that way. Not many men would take that well. They'd be like, well, I mean, I was this and that, and I was busy. You didn't tell me, and I didn't know. And it's like, and he went immediately to go, okay, do I do that still? And I was like, no, you know. I'm like, that was a long time ago. That was like 10 years ago. We've come a long way. And I've come a long way to be like, tell him my boundaries, tell him the things that are important to me. And it was through quarantine that I was just discovering how much I hadn't told him. And we'd been married 14 years at that point. And I was going, how could I do that to him? How could I put somebody through 14 years of marriage and then they still don't really know me the way I know myself? Mm-hmm. That's on me.
How many people out there that are in relationships truly know their significant other, though?
Exactly.
Not many.
My parents have been married for
I would say it's probably
50?
less than 1%.
My parents have been married 49 years, and I'm still astounded at the ability that they don't talk and know each other. I'm just like,
Well, the fact that Sky acknowledges that and is willing to listen to you and
Huge.
and accept that,
huge.
I mean, that's a lottery ticket.
Oh,
really
I
is.
know. And honestly, I've never really talked about my marriage. I didn't even talk about my marriage that open on the podcast because I know how rare it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how I feel lucky. I feel like I won the lottery.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that is so unusual to be in a relationship for such a long time with somebody who's doing the work for themselves and who is doing the work because they want to be with you. They want to be in this relationship. I was so profoundly unhappy last year. And it had nothing to do with him. It was all circumstantial. And that's part of the reason why I realized I was depressed. And I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know how to communicate my needs. That's depression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you feel stuck in a cyclone that you can't get out of, you're existing.
Yeah.
And I remember I was just crying in my studio, and he came in the garage to do something. He didn't hear me crying because we were all stuck together for such a long time. And he comes in, and I'm just like, I'm so unhappy, and I don't know why. I don't know what I want. I don't know how to make myself happier. And I know a lot. I know a lot about myself, and I still feel lost. And that was kind of part of my realization of realizing I was depressed, is that all the puzzle pieces were there and I couldn't put them together. It was just, there was this roadblock there that I just couldn't do anything with. And he sat there and he listened to me, and I've seen my husband cry 3 times in 16 years. He's not a crier. We've had long conversations about that too. And he was really quiet for a while, and then he started to cry, and that got my attention. That dried up my tears quick, because I was like, he was crying, and he was just like, I would do anything to make you happy. And he's like, I can't do this for you. This is not mine to do. He's like, but I would do anything to make you happy. And I was like, in that moment, it just made me realize how important it is to have that when you're at your lowest and when you're not doing well, is that you need somebody in your life that is like your sanctuary.
Yeah.
That is your important person, because I would not be the person that I am today if I hadn't been the ability to lean on him, and he would not be the person that he is today without his ability to lean on me. We've had that conversation back and forth all the time, and I think that's where toxic masculinity gets in the way a lot, which is why I was so excited to come on this podcast, because I am blown away at his ability to be like, why would I care about what other people think?
Yeah.
He's like, he told me this morning when I said, I can't believe you took that so well. And I would have in the past protected him from telling him that he had weaponized incompetence problems when we were younger. And I was trying to protect him from that hurt. And so I wouldn't tell him. And that was a huge disservice to him. And I told him, I said, I can't believe you took that so well. And he goes, honestly, ever since I can remember, I have been fighting for my life to be happy. He's like, I just want to be happy. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I just realized through watching my parents how not to do it. And he has relationships with his parents now. It's taken a long time to like work that out. And they apologize all the time for the positions that they put him in. And they've done as much healing as they can and doing the best they can. And he has the ability to go, I forgive them. I'm ready to move on. And I don't hold any responsibility to them. And that's hard to do too. You talked about your goals being letting go, and the letting go of the fear and the anger. That's really hard to do when somebody's really done some awful things, but it's nothing to do with them.
No, not at all.
You know, and I can see the evidence of it in my husband. Like he's an incredible human being that never gets credit for it because nobody knows.
But that's,
I know.
Yeah.
I met him for like 30 minutes or maybe 45 at a Little League thing. And I was like, dude, he's a cool cat.
Yeah. He's got a really good vibe. He's got a really clean, happy, chill, peaceful vibe.
Yep.
And people are attracted to that. We actually talked about that during when we both started to kind of feel better. We were talking about how I was feeling about my friendships that were shifting, and I was really sad. I was really sad that they were not what I thought they were. And I was confused because I was like, how did I misread that? You know, and we were talking about, because he doesn't have a lot of close friends guy friends.
When's he gonna come on the show?
Yeah, he's asked that several times too. So just bring another mic, man.
They're right over there. We'll bring them on over.
But he just doesn't make close guy friends. And he's like, I think I've realized what my issue is. And I watched the deterioration of his high school best friend through our 20s, and it was painful. It was so hard to watch because these were the guys that made the joke that if, they got to old age and all their spouses were dead and it was just them two that they would duel to the death. Like they thought they were going to be friends forever.
Yeah.
And I thought so too, based off of their history, their friendship, what they'd been through together. And when men can't connect and they can't make friends, there's something missing, and he and I talked about that I think I refuse to put myself in the position to be friends because it's always been such a big priority to me to be a good father and a good husband because that's all I ever wanted.
But he needs his guy time too.
And he's starting to realize that, but he's like, I think, and I was like, actually, I know he's known that for 4 or 5 years, and he's tried, and he's reached out and tried to make friendships, and I've watched him pull back, and I've watched him choose not to, and this last week we were kind of breaking that down, and he's just like, I think I choose not to because there's only so much room I have to deal with someone else's bullshit. And that's like a whole nother layer to like break down of like how hard it is to make friends, but how important it is. But it's, if you don't have a home life that feels stable, how impossible is it? You only got so many decisions. There's only so much energy that you can have, And it's like, I think we all acknowledge that part of the beauty of doing this podcast is that we've become like pretty cool instant friends through like how often do people talk about this shit like this? Like, I mean, honestly, unless
especially
you're drunk.
Publicly.
Yeah, especially publicly. And
it's okay. We only have like 12 listeners anyways right now.
No, we have more than
but the problem is this lives forever. Okay. Just saying. But I don't know. I think as men, to wrap it all up nicely, as women, we look at the weaponized incompetence and we look at the lack of ability to connect and the kind of like victim mentality of I can't and things like that. And
men are terrible at that.
And because of all of the celebrated cultural bullshit that you guys are all sick of. You're all sick of it. And you guys have reached that point of disgust. That's why we're here. You want to have these open discussions. And I think there's such a cool way forward through these open discussions because we've also discussed how men don't reach out to you guys about the podcast unless they want to criticize. And
I'll get them in the DMs and I'll get them face to face.
Sometimes.
But
think about how many men out there that have listened that all you've done is cause them to think. And that's
Jerry,
the beginning.
Who's, kind of like I said before, like my circuit dad, he listened to the Enneagram one. He's like, I think I'm a 9 or I think I'm this. And I'm like, just take the test.
Yeah.
But he got to thinking about it.
Yeah, getting to know yourself. That's actually why I brought it up first, is how impossible would it be if you guys were trying to go on this journey and how complicated it is and how many layers there are if you didn't realize who you were first, to be able to name your feelings, to be able to realize where your boundaries are, to be able to realize that's not going to work for me. And like, it'd be impossible to heal from all this childhood trauma bullshit. Like, it'd be so hard. It would be impossible.
You would spend a lot of money on counseling, and who knows if that would
and reading books and going on mental health retreats and doing.
Yeah.
But
the tasks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as soon as you can move past the doing or recognize what the doing is for, because the doing has its place. It allows for that. It holds that space and gives you that room to grow. But there's all that other stuff beyond the doing that is the part where everyone gets stuck.
But yeah, but even for me, like, I'll have guy friends that'll be like, I need to go to counseling or I need to find a therapist. And for me, like, I have a list of like therapists and stuff that I just send to people, like whenever they talk about.
No shit. That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, that's way cool.
Yeah, it's like a list of like 15 or 20 like local therapists just in Portland.
Do you know how many times I've asked my friends for therapist recommendations and gotten bump kiss? And then that feels hard too.
Yeah.
Where you're like, well, okay.
And if they're not receptive to that, what about just saying, hey, listen to our podcast?
No, that's not gonna happen.
Why?
Because just like, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like the guys like that I'll send this list to, they'll say, oh, you know, like I need to go to therapy. Like I want to have this and this and this kind of therapist. But not one guy has like contacted like a therapist from this list. But when I send that same list to women, they're like, oh my God, this is great. And like from the people that I've sent, I probably, you know, helped coordinate probably 4 to 6 women find therapists and stuff
No
like
kidding.
that. And just,
That
you
is
know,
huge.
yeah, and just you know, help them get to a better place and stuff, because they listen to the show, they see, you know, my growth and stuff like that, and you know, they'll be like, wow, like how'd you change, or how'd you do this, or how'd you find yourself, or this or that, whatever else. And I say, you know, a lot of what we're talking about today, like I was just tired of feeling like shit. Like I was tired of being in the rat race and being in the dumps and, you know, being whatever. So for me, like I like want to change, you know, and I just think that these women, you know, they'll either get in therapy themselves or they'll attempt to get their spouses and stuff like that in therapy. But, you know, from what I've heard, none of the spouses have gotten into it. And I mean,
Okay, can I bring up a perspective that might offer maybe an explanation, but don't crucify me for it.
yeah.
I feel like I'm saying something in front of a group of guys that I highly respect. I know Mike's like giving me the
Like, where are we going with this one?
We all get like our arms folded and.
I know. Okay, just bring down your balls. It's fine. It's fine.
Whoa.
Okay. Okay, so I've been exploring that for quite some time of like, why do some people choose not to? I don't understand. Like, why do people choose not to get help when it's now culturally acceptable to? In fact, celebrated. I don't care what gender you are. I mean, you can have your own background, but most people will be like, pat you on the back for seeking therapy, seeking help, you know, and whatever. That's why I asked Mike when you said you sought out help. I was like, what did that look like for you? And I applaud the fact that you brought up therapy. You brought up like the stuff that you sought out for help, because a lot of people misconstrue what help is. So I spent a lot of time thinking about this and this makes a lot of men really uncomfortable. And this has actually created a tension point in my marriage that I think we've now, like, at least we understand each other now. But a lot of times with men, especially middle-aged white men, no offense.
I'm handicapped, so it's not the same.
Okay.
Two-handed white men. Got it.
Okay. I even held up 2 hands when I said that.
Yep.
I think a lot of times when middle-aged white men specifically, and categorically there's way more percentage of middle-aged white men on the planet, especially in the United States, you know, where we're not a third world country, we're developed, right? I think a lot of really comfortable white middle-aged men live in a society that's built for them, and it makes it easy for them to ignore the hard shit. It's easier. Not that life's easy, and I never want any man to think that I'm saying you've got it so easy. It's like, no, it's not. I'm not about ease. It's not about who's got it harder and who is going to make it, you know, easier or better. But it's undeniable that the society has been built for white men. Society has been built and structured for that when it comes to getting credit, buying a house, getting a job, building a career, going to college. All of it has been built on the backs of white men for white men.
I don't argue with that.
I'm putting that out there because of that, society is just built to make it more like easy to just exist as a white man. And so then you get people with traumatized backgrounds that already kicks you out of the category. You're no longer a part of that like smooth process. And so life is still really hard. It sucks. It's like the difficult trauma, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go through growing up like the only black guy, and then you growing up handicapped. We are in, all of us, we don't belong in that category. Yeah. Right? Yeah. We don't belong in that smooth pathway that's easy. So you look at
the country club pathway, if you will. I mean,
even if you're poor,
the silver spooners,
even if you're poor,
the
society is still built for you to succeed and rise up if you're a white man.
Bootstrap.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So when there are men, I don't care what race they are, it depends on what they glorify, what they were raised with, what's important to them. If they grew up to be a middle-aged man, arguably life is going to be easier. And because of that, it is so easy for them to turn a blind eye and go, it's fine.
Oh, well, it didn't happen to me.
Yeah.
No, like that.
Somebody
Yeah.
could always be worse. Look at this dude
Yeah.
over here. He needs
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
I don't need therapy. He needs therapy. And it's so easy to hide behind the ease of things. But when life is hard anyway, and you are not built for success, you are not set up for success because of your race, because of your gender, because of your handicaps, because of your traumatized background. When you're not set up for success, you're tired of the bullshit sooner.
Yeah.
You're like, I am at that point of disgust much sooner in my life. Thank you very much, if at all. And so you get those friends that are the women in your life that are like, how do I get my man to go? It's like, he hasn't hit that point of disgust, and honey, it may never happen.
Yeah.
And that's not your job to do.
Yeah.
I have a close friend. She gave me permission to talk about this too. I have a close friend who's been begging her husband to go to therapy for 2 years. She has been begging him, not because he's a bad person or that he's abusive. He's actually one of the kindest, sweetest people I know, but he makes some really stupid decisions because of the bullshit he was raised on and the codependency that's in his life and all these things. And he struggles to move past those things, and it affects their marriage like massively because she understands her boundaries and she's like, nope. And he can't seem to accept those boundaries because he doesn't have to. Life is still smooth.
And they were and his ability to break through those boundaries was accepted and possibly encouraged at home as a child.
He wasn't allowed to have boundaries as a child. And so he doesn't know how to let other people hold boundaries.
Right.
He doesn't know what it means to have his own boundaries because he was raised by a toxic man who was like, it's my way or the highway. You're going to be a man and you're going to suck it up and you're going to achieve and you're going to be
Not going to talk about your feelings.
You don't have
and
feelings.
if I just yell at you loud enough, you're going to succeed.
And
if I
don't you
beat
dare talk back to me.
Oh, no.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's what he was raised by. And over Christmas break, she actually got through to him. And he's reading a book about boundaries right now that she and I have both read, actually. Has
he listened to the show?
We're working on it. And I think he would now.
Who is it?
Nope.
His name is Rob.
Anyway, it's like, so what we were saying, Gary, is
what
like.
If his name is Rob?
No, it's not actually, but.
It's probably Mike.
It's no. I feel like there are so many women out there, and heck, even brothers, like men to other brothers, where you're like, you need to go to fucking therapy. And as much as we see it, it's just life is easy enough. It's paved. Easy is the wrong word. Life is clearly paved for people in that category, and they just may never get to that point of disgust because it's not as bumpy. It's not as, I don't know how else to say it. And I've had a lot of discussions over the patriarchy with my husband because I'm surrounded by men, right? My mom, I was raised by a feminist, which is interesting. She married a very normal, like, mainstream white man. And I'm the only girl, and she was like, I'll be damned if my daughter doesn't believe these things and doesn't see these things, and I want a better life for her because she resented the fact that she was put into, like, you get to do this and that's it.
A box.
And she's still dealing with that. She's 67, but I can look at both sides though, because the people that I've been surrounded by, I love and I respect these men in my life, but I can also see where I'm like, this did not help you. This ease of pathway through your life has allowed you to stomp all over people and decide that it's just business, it's not personal, and decide that you don't need therapy despite your inability to stop hurting people. You're constantly hurting people. It's like, aren't you tired of hurting people? We had that discussion, Mike. Like, you were just tired of hurting people. You reached a point of disgust sooner because it's not been easy for you.
It's been a swim against the current. Or paddle against the current.
But yeah, like for me, like it's nice when I have people just come up to me and be like, like I listen to the show, it's great, or like I love the path and the journey you're on and stuff like that. Like I have guys and stuff like that I work with. They're like, hey, like I checked out your podcast and I listened to it. It's great, this and that. But also there's guys that are like, so do you think you're Charlemagne the God now or something like that?
See,
And you're like, what if I am?
Well,
Yeah.
no, I can get that
Yeah.
because especially when you're new to this,
Yeah.
people like to do that because they're trolling you, and there's jealousy. In
It's
fact,
because they don't believe that they can.
Yeah.
Oh, I unfriended a friend, quote unquote, that I went to high school with 3 weeks ago because he was in my DMs trying to blow me up about that. I'm like, fuck off with all your bullshit. You don't have any desire to lift me up. You never have. You've always been a hater.
Yeah.
So off you go.
Yeah.
Dude, can I give you guys some advice as you go through this journey? I know you've podcasted it before, but you're on a different like thought journey now than you were in your previous podcast. As you guys go through this, have you ever heard the phrase, you can't be a prophet in your own town?
Definitely.
Oh, I believe that 100%.
Yeah.
Because I have no support
Yeah.
or
Same.
very little.
Same.
from
The
my town.
the group of people that support me the most, that are like fans of my content, don't know me.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know me personally, and
Yeah.
the people that do know me and are supportive don't listen to my stuff.
Right.
They don't listen to my stuff. They don't watch my stuff. They don't participate. And
It's
I had
because
to let
people
that
are
go.
like, why can't I have that? Like, why can't I do this
Well,
or something
they
like
get
that?
jealous,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
they think, who is she
Yeah.
to become this person?
Yeah.
Because they knew me in my toxic days. They knew me when I was growing. They knew me when I was making a lot of mistakes that I can't stop thinking about late at night when I have a fever. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, we're allowed to grow as humans, but it's also natural that we grow and we move. What got us here is not going to get us there. It's like, we're going to become different people, and it's hard for the people to accept that. And so as you guys move along, don't expect support from people in your
I
life.
gave that up a long time ago.
It's a beautiful thought,
Yeah.
but my very best friends, and I've had to even let go of judgment of my very best friends that I grew up with. They don't listen to my stuff, but they would do anything for me.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's okay. And it's okay for them to not love my content because it makes them uncomfortable,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's
So-
and that's their path and their
exactly.
journey, and
It's their
and-
path.
But don't show up in my shit talking trash.
No, that's also their shit.
Yeah,
That is also their
that
shit.
I have no room for. So, well, with that, I think this has been an ultra marathon podcast today. But want to wrap it up with your final thoughts, just a minute on what you've taken away from this show, because this is the longest one we've done, and I think it's by far the deepest that we have gone with
felt
each
good.
other. Yeah, it did.
Mike's
And-
like, no.
and that's what I'm going to turn to Mike first, and I'm going to ask you, compared to 3.5 hours ago when we started, how do you feel?
Oh, I feel a lot lighter. It's nice to get all that off my chest and actually kind of be known and be accepted for all the shit,
You're sitting taller.
Well, I'm
Right.
uncomfortable, but but no, my takeaway is just to have those people in your life, like I have you guys in my life, and I have my girlfriend in my life, and my kids, and the people that you can be open and 100% with, because it's tough to really be yourself if you can only be 75%.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't feel good.
No.
That feels awful.
And being known and accepted, even though you make mistakes, there's nothing that can replace that.
Well
So
said.
That's my takeaway.
Yeah.
Well said, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, this day's just been interesting because, like it's just been interesting just seeing Mike's vibe and mood and stuff like that change. Like it's been great, and I just think it's just about being open, and it's just about being, accepting of change and like new things and stuff like that. And I think like even for me, like in my personal life, I will tell people, that I'm a part of this podcast, that I go to therapy and all these things. And the person that I told this to before that was talking to their sister about how therapy is fucked, how it's so stupid, like just all these different things. And then I came in and I didn't know that at the time, but I'm like talking with this person. And then after, I talked with them and told them about some books that I've read and things that I've done and yada, 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 that person went to their sister and was just like, wow, like, I think I want to go to therapy now. Like, I
Really?
think I want change and stuff like that. And like, for me, like that makes me feel good because this person is a great person, but from a like lens, like an aspect of like society looking at them, society would probably generally be terrified of this person. So for me to see that and for me to hear that makes me feel good, because that's the point of me wanting to do this shit. Like,
Yeah.
I want people that look like me to go to therapy. I want people that look like Mike and Will and Jen and stuff like that. Like, we should be pushing to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And leaving a imprint of, you know, generosity and help and love and shit like that. Not trying to shit on people for trying to be better. Not trying to hold somebody by a standard of what they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago or something like that. Like, we should be showing love. And that's what I want from this show. And I think that's what I've seen, because you can see it in Mike's beautiful face. Like, he's so much happier now, and it's great. You know, I just want to run up and give him a big hug.
Except he's looking at his phone, so he's not paying attention to your.
I'm listening.
It's fine.
What a way to begin a new year.
What's that?
What a way to begin a new year.
Right. I don't know if you did your beard or you had your barber do it, but your lines are looking clean. Props.
Thank
to
you.
that.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, I've
can't
been
even see it.
noticing
The mic's
just
in the
the
way.
right side
Yeah.
all day is.
Done at the house, man.
Oh, geez, Louise. Hold it up to the microphone.
Oh, was Mike going to dance for us? Actually,
That actually may get us pulled down for
Don't do
something,
it.
so
Don't do it.
take it off. I'm not kidding you. They really get after that.
Copyright.
Jen, what do you have for us?
I'm not sure I have much beyond what you guys already
Really?
said.
You don't have much? No,
I already
wrapping
gave it
up-
all.
I know. No, just wrapping up your thoughts on
I guess wrapping up my thoughts is that we continue to like how many we're 14 episodes in on the podcast,
Yes,
right?
this is number 14. And
This would be 15, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
This is-
15.
No, the last one was
Was
13.
Oh, okay.
No, this was 15. So yes, this is number 15. I don't know
Yeah,
how
so
to
we're
count.
15
job.
episodes in. We're 15 episodes in, and we're just really getting to some really good stuff.
We're just scratching the surface.
We're just scratching the surface, but we're scratching in the right spots right now, I think. And
I'm starting to kick.
I know you guys are kicking the legs. Right behind the ear.
Yeah.
And I think that it's kind of telling that anytime that there is stuff to work out, it's just allow yourself to kind of sit in it for a second. That's been like a huge learning space for me, is to acknowledge how you're feeling for what it is. You acknowledge it, sit in it, allow yourself to just kind of ruminate it. It doesn't feel good. That's actually kind of the point of self-care. The self-care that society accepts, like taking a bath and like, you know, going for a run and eating healthy. The point of doing those things is so that you have the mental space to sit in the yuck for a second and just recognize it as what it is. Let it pass through you, move on, and allow yourself to heal from it, because otherwise you're stuck in that feelings loop and then you'll burn out.
That's good.
And then you'll wonder why.
Yeah.
Don't let yourself get there.
See, that's one thing, and I'll use this to wrap up. That's one thing that I have really taken notice of, is the burnout that I had, and I didn't know why, because I just kept beating myself, my head
Those moments
against
where
the
you were
wall.
disappearing
Yeah.
is a form of burnout.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And we've even witnessed it once, and I knew it. I knew
Yeah.
what it was. But I also knew that there's nothing that we can do for you but be a soft place to land and love you through every process that you're deciding to go through. That's friends' jobs.
And I appreciate that greatly. And this is, you know, again, a lot of this is so new to me that I still don't know how to deal with a lot of it, but that's part of the process.
It's not new to me, and I still don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. But I appreciate it, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think I'm blessed in that way. It's just like the gym. I am blessed to enjoy the gym.
Mm-hmm.
It is something I wake up early.
I want to enjoy the gym. I want to wake up early to go to the gym.
You'll get there.
I'm not there.
I wake
You
up
will.
before
You'll get
my
there.
alarm to go to the gym because
Oh.
I'm so excited.
You'll get there. You'll
Yes,
get there.
you will. And if you come
It's a
with me,
learned
I will
behavior.
beat it into you.
That's not going to get me very far.
No.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, Gary's like, what time, big boy? Anyway, with
On
that
that
being,
note.
yeah, on that note, no, I think that these two shows have been great for all of us, cathartic and all that, but I think they've also given us a path for both the show and for us as a group offline and individually moving through the year. Because what this allows us to do is say, if one of us, we can see that one of us needs a little pickup or something is off, these types of discussions, which I've never had a discussion like this in 44 years with any of my friends, and I just did it in 3 hours or 3.5 hours with people that I've known for months, which is a testament to us, right. You for years. But this is something that it's a seed that has planted, and we will get to watch it grow over this year. And if one of us needs to water each other's seed a little more, don't make shit weird every time, bro. I'm trying to be serious now, okay? I'm not going to pee on you.
Yet.
But if I have a jellyfish, are you going to pee on me?
Huh?
If I get stung by a jellyfish, are you going to pee on me?
No, I will. Have you seen 2 Girls, 1 Cup? No.
Oh, too much.
Anyway, that being said,
and that's
that was way past the line. But all jokes aside,
Gary is blushing.
Yeah, I'm definitely blushing. This just got very awkward.
Right? But we are there for each other, and laughter is part of that, and that's why we have all said in our group chat that we want to bring more humility and no, not humility. Humor. That's the word I was looking for, because that is a really, really positive way for us to heal. And that's why you'll hear me interject funny things when we're talking about really heavy things or like that, because it shows that, yeah, we're being vulnerable and whatever. We're no better than any of you, and you're not better than us, and we're all on this journey together. We're just talking about it, and hopefully we're kind of the captain of your ship too. Mm-hmm. And we hope that you want to ride along.
A deep belly laugh is actually a really healthy way to close that feelings loop.
And that just laugh that I had like a month ago at Gary, I still think about that laugh.
I hear that's like 5. That's equal to like doing a bunch of crunches.
Oh,
so I'd rather laugh than do crunches.
Yeah, that's
you
why
move more face muscles by smiling, or you move more by frowning.
No,
so it's harder to frown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love you guys.
You too.
I love you too.
Yep.
We go.